Hello, my name is Rebecca Cruz, and this is my biomechanics final analysis video. I am analyzing currently the skill of slacklining. It's not very known, but the goal is to walk across a flexible line while maintaining balance. This video includes frontal, that's the bottom one, and a sagittal plane, the top one. And it's basically slow motion analysis and some error identification and biomechanical corrections that we're going to be talking about. This is the full footage with both frontal and sagittal. So this one is the first major error, that it's excessive lateral sway. As I take in each step, my center of gravity shifts too far outside my base of support, which makes a lot harder to balance. Biomechanically, this happens because the slack line is extremely narrow and it moves a lot, so the center of gravity must stay directly over the line. When it moves too far from the left or the right, the torque increases around the hip joint, forcing the body to make bigger corrective motions. To improve this, I will need to tighten my core and reduce the hip rotation and keep my mass more vertically aligned over the line. This reduces unnecessary torque and improves overall stability. And you can see on the frontal, one example of this is how I draw a vertical line from the head down to the slack line to show the deviation. The error number 2, what I used errors to show in the arm movement, the direction of the knee wobble, but it's the second error. It's overusing the arms. Even though using the arms in slacklining, it's low-key the most important part. But for balance, it's it should be used for balance and not overuse, instead of controlling your movement with your lower body. But here you can see a large arm swings as I try to steady myself. This causes instability, and because the arms create an angular momentum that the lower body then has to counteract. But from a biomechanical perspective, the proper balance on the slack line depends on the ankle strategy and the hip stabilization that I have. So no arm flailing, and the arm motion should be controlled and minimal to avoid any rotational torque. So to improve this, I should keep my arms steady and kind of holding it to the sides instead of going all the way up, and let the ankles and hips absorb the instability. So this uses the body natural balance chain more efficiently. Here what you can see is the large arm swings, and they're highlighted by the arrows, and instead of stabilizing from the ankle and hip, the arms create unnecessary torque that this makes the body sway more, which is why the balance becomes unstable for a second there. It starts normal, but she was be able to kind of hold herself because of the leg movement. But this is how it goes. Now going into the biomechanical elements. The number 1 is the center of gravity and the base of support. That little circle is the center of mass around the belly area. Slacklining requires keeping the center of gravity directly over a very narrow base of support, because the slackline moves in all directions, and the center of gravity must constantly shift to maintain equilibrium. So when it shifts too far outside of the base of support, the body must produce large corrective like torques to avoid falling. Maintaining a low, steady center of gravity reduces these torques to demands and keep the movement like efficiently. Number two element is the torque and counterbalance. And as I walk, each wobble of the line produces rotational torque at the hip. And my arms naturally move in the opposite direction to counteract that torque. That is called counterbalance torque. And however, excessive arm motion increases rotational forces and makes me less stable. And proper technique minimizes upper body torque and uses small, continuous hip and ankle adjustments instead. Then we have the number 3, the dynamic stabilization. Ankle and hip strategy. Here I have a line where like the angle of the ankle and the knee shows the flexion. It doesn't have like a big flexion because she's wearing jeans and it's kind of hard, but like slacklining relies heavily on like dynamic stabilization. So especially at the ankle and hip joints, these joints constantly make like micro adjustments to maintain balance. When the ankle stiffness is too high or the hips move like unpredictable, balance becomes harder to control. Improving slackline performance requires increasing of ankle mobility and core engagement and control like hip rotation to stabilize movement efficiently. But this completes and concludes my biomechanical analysis of the slackline walk. Thank you for watching.